Harara.
Harari.
Harari. That's it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Out of Nowhere. It's a brand new show, been going about 3 months. We always get some interesting guests on my show. Uh, Today is my guest is Dan Harari. He's a veteran Hollywood publicist and author um, of 4 books, Flirting with Fame. I think it's Carrots. After They Came, My Paranormal Life. There's a UFO Experiencer as well. Can we please welcome Daniel to the show? Hello there.
Hello there, my friend. Actually, Bob, I'm up to 5 books. I have a brand new book just came out the other day, and it's called Five. It's my 5th book.
Oh, brilliant.
So I've written 5 books in 2 years. I've got them all published. I don't think Stephen King even pulled that off.
No, definitely. Uh, Tell us a little bit about yourself and your 40 years in Hollywood.
Sure. I grew up in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is a famous seaside resort town. I was born in 56, and I grew up in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And my funny story is when I was in high school, I worked with Bruce Springsteen before he was famous. I worked at a rock concert hall in high school. I had long hair. I was a drummer. You could see my electronic drums behind me over there. And after school, Bob, I rode my bike after school to a rock concert hall. And I worked with Bruce Springsteen. I worked with Kiss. I worked with Fleetwood Mac, Humble Pie,
Oh, brilliant.
Deep Purple,
Oh, brilliant.
Edgar Winter, Jay Giles. I worked with almost all of the top 70s bands. Most of them weren't famous yet. So that started when I was 15. Then I went to college. I went to Boston University. I studied communications. After college, I worked briefly in New York City. I got a job at Columbia Pictures in the PR department, and that was the summer of 1980. But I was commuting from the New Jersey shore into Manhattan, and that was 4 hours a day on a bus, and that killed me. It was just so hard. I didn't have the energy. I hated being on the bus, so I asked them to lay me off. They laid me off. I got unemployment, and I had a good friend from New Jersey who had just moved to Los Angeles. Joanne, her name was. So she invited me to come and stay on her couch on Venice Beach. I lived on her couch for a year, and then she got married and moved to New York. But so I came out to LA. I was 24, and it took a few years till I started to get involved in the entertainment industry. And as of today, I've been a Hollywood publicist for 40. This year, Bob, is my 40th anniversary.
Oh,
40,
my God.
40 years.
40 years.
I've worked with movie studios, TV networks. I worked with Hugh Hefner at the Playboy Channel. I was a publicist for Hugh Hefner. I worked at Columbia Pictures 2 different times. I worked at the American Film Institute. I worked for 2 very, very big PR firms. I represented celebrities in film festivals and TV shows. And then when I turned 40 in 1996, I started my own business, which is what I still have today. It's called the Asbury PR Agency. This is my office in Beverly Hills. And in October, my PR agency will be 28 years old. And I'm hoping it hits 30, and then maybe I'll retire and go take a rest in Hawaii or something.
Oh, brilliant. I understand you are a 3 times UFO experiencer. Can you describe your 3 encounters?
Actually, you know what? I need to update that, Bob, because I saw my 4th UFO
Oh,
at Contact in the Desert a few weeks ago. So I've now seen 4. It just happened a few weeks ago.
oh, brilliant.
The first one I saw, I was 14 years old. It was March 1970, and I saw a UFO with my dad. He picked me up after school, driving me home in his car. I'm in the passenger seat. It was daytime, suburban New Jersey, where I grew up, and there was a UFO hovering above my father's car. So I'm 14. I'm in the passenger seat. I go, Dad, stop the car. I saw it through the windshield. Stop the car. There's a UFO. There's UFOs. We got out of the car. We stood in front of the car. We looked up, Bob, and I'm jumping up, and Dad, there's a UFO. Isn't this great? And it was a silver V like Victor. Silver V, very shiny, huge, maybe 400 feet in the air, pretty low.
Yeah.
Silent, silent. No propellers, no smoke, no noise, just hanging there above my father's car. So I'm jumping up and down. For me, it was like seeing something from Star Trek because Star Trek was on TV in those days. And my dad looked at it like he was bored. He looked at it like he had seen it a million times. And then he said, "Come on, let's go home." We went home. I called my local newspaper and I said, I'm 14. I just saw a UFO with my dad. And the lady said, "Sonny, I can't talk to you. We're getting hundreds of phone calls right now." And then no article ever ran in the paper. So, Bob, I
Mm.
forgot about that for 47 years. And we'll get to that part two later. But
Yeah.
that was my first UFO, 1970. My second one, I was with my son. He on his 8th birthday. Today he's 36, but on his 8th birthday, I got him a telescope, and my ex-wife and my kids moved out to Lancaster, California, which is near Edwards Air Force Base, and I was living in North Hollywood at the time. So I spent the evening with my son on his 8th birthday. It was May 1996. And we looked in the sky and we saw Saturn and Mars and the moon and everything with a telescope. I got him a telescope as a gift for his birthday. And we were going to go back inside, but in the far right-hand corner of the sky appeared, it looked like an egg-shaped light. It was bright. It was yellow-white color egg. It appeared on the right side of the sky and it flew all the way across the sky in a straight line from one end of the sky to the other, all very fast in a straight line. And I said to my son, I said, "Jordan, there's a satellite. Isn't that great? We're seeing a satellite." And then, Bob, it stopped in place for about 20 or 30 seconds. It just stopped. And I thought it was going to fall to the earth. I thought there was a problem with the satellite
Yeah.
and gravity was going to pull it. And I really did thought it was going to fall. And then it decided to retreat, and it went back all the way it came from, the same line, all the way back, and then it vanished. Well, that's not a satellite.
No,
That's
never.
not a. It's not a comet or an asteroid. It's not a plane. It wasn't a helicopter.
How big do you think it was?
It was very high up. It was very hard. It would be very hard to say. But I've told people this story, and a guy I know who lives out that way says, "Dan, you were near Edwards Air Force Base. They test military drones quite often that use reverse engineering of alien technologies, and that sounds like what that was." And Bob, when I really think about that, I believe that was a military craft. It was almost like it flew across. They were testing something, then it stopped, and they were thinking, maybe we should turn this dial a little bit more. Maybe we should turn that one down less. And then, hey, anybody hungry? Yeah, let's go get dinner. Okay. And then they went back to where they came from, and then it vanished.
Ah, right.
I think that was military. The third one I saw this is a great story. Summer of 2008, I went with a girlfriend to James Gilliland's ranch in Washington State. James Gilliland owns a ranch called ECETI Ranch, ECETI. It's a famous UFO hotspot for hundreds of years. The Native American Indians used to see UFOs there hundreds of years ago. And it's at the base of Mount Adams. Mount Adams is one mountain down from Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is where Kenneth Arnold saw his UFOs in June 1947.
Right.
So there was a 3-day weekend at this ranch, and during the afternoons, during the daytime, they had a white tent on the property, and they had lectures and seminars and films. I think Nick Pope spoke there. I remember William Henry spoke there. And they showed, they talked about the pyramids and crop circles and Nazca lines and Stonehenge and all that stuff. And then at night, we would look up in the sky for hours and hours to see a UFO. So the first night, look up in the sky, nothing happened. Second night, looked up in the sky, nothing happened. Third night, we're looking up in the sky a couple hours, and your neck hurts after a while.
Yes.
You know this. And so after about 2 hours, I said to my girlfriend, her name was Barbara, I got my car keys out. I said, Barbara, because there were 200 cars on the property. I said, Barbara, if we leave right now, we can beat the rush of cars. And Bob, no sooner did I say that, a very large black craft appeared over us from behind us. I don't know how big it was. It blocked out the sky. It must have been pretty big.
Hmm.
But it appeared from behind the trees. It came over, and then there's 200 people on the ground, and there's a bonfire. It hovered over us. I looked up. I said to myself, what the hell is that thing? And then in the middle of the craft underneath was I'm going to call it a crystal glass bulb. There was like a large crystal glass bulb right in the center. It turned on, and it was very bright, dark emerald green light. Beautiful color, emerald green, like from The Wizard of Oz. And it was in that bulb. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. Then the light shone over all of us, 200 people. It shone over us, and
Oh,
it went like this,
right.
silent. But it was almost like Morse code. So it was this green light bathing. We're all looking up, 200 people, and we're getting bathed in this light. And I'm thinking, I didn't hear anything, but I'm thinking they're saying, hi, we're here. We know you've been waiting for us. We were in the neighborhood. We're sorry we're late. Everything's fine. Don't be afraid. We love you. We love mankind. We're here to help you. Be kind to each other. Be kind to planet Earth. And we got to go, and we'll see you another time. And so this is what I got from this light.
Yeah.
And maybe a minute. And then it stopped. And then the craft just slowly moved a little bit away. And then bang, zoom, and flew over Mount
Gone.
Adams and disappeared. So I cried, Bob. I was crying. I mean, people were crying because it was so profound. And that was '08. I still couldn't feel it in my heart to this day.
And did that fly towards Mount Adams then?
Yeah, it did. It flew right to Mount Adams and then it vanished. The American Indians used to call Mount Adams the Mountain of Shining Lights. Someone told me that when I was there, and I'm like, wow.
Oh,
Okay, so those are the three. The fourth one I just saw a month ago. It was the last day of contact, so it would have been June. It was the last night of it was June 2nd. It was almost a month ago. I'm at Contact in the Desert, Palm Springs. I was the publicist for it. I was there the whole show. And the last night there, they had a CE5. You know what CE5 is?
yeah. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
They did a CE5 event out in the backyard at the resort by the pool. And there were probably 200 people there. And we're looking up at the sky from 9 p.m. till 10:30 p.m. And they're saying, and the people leading the CE5 are like, hello, our friends in the sky. We love you. We would love to meet you. Please show yourselves. Don't be afraid. We want to communicate with you. Everything's cool. We want to expand our consciousness. We want to relate to you. So that was that. So for an hour and a half, it was people talking. And we're looking up, looking up, looking up. So that's from 9 to 10:30. At 10:30, I heard a bang. It was not very, very loud, but it was a mild bang in the sky. The bang.
Yeah.
And in the sky above us, and I'm going to say 400 feet, no more, a beautiful craft just appeared. It just appeared. It looked like it came out of a portal because there was like a puff of smoke. And then a craft came. It was a V, but it wasn't like the V I saw with my dad. It had rounded corners. It was vanilla white color mixed with caramel gold color.
Ooh.
So imagine, what I'm saying to people is, imagine vanilla ice cream with caramel ribbon. It was that. It was beautiful. V. And it flew just over us very quickly. And under each of the two wings had three, looked like octopus suction cups. So there's three octopus suction cups under each wing. And Bob, they were pulsing. These suction cups, they were bright light, lit up, and they were like this. They looked like it was alive. It looked like it was an animal.
Hmm.
and it's in the sky 10, 12 seconds max. Here, flew over us. We're all like, oh my God, and then it just vanished. Well, it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. I mean, beautiful. It's the most beautiful one I've ever seen.
Did you get anything out of it?
Not that one. Not that one. But it was so obviously a reaction to the CE5 people. I mean,
Yes.
we're at contact in the desert. We're in Palm Springs in the desert at night. People for an hour and a half are like, please show yourselves. We love you. An hour and a half. And there's music and they're lighting incense and like everyone's holding hands, right? People are holding hands and we're looking up. And I was thinking to myself, I really would love to see something tonight. That was my personal
Yeah.
thing. I'm like, God, I really hope this works because it seems pretty corny. Oh, Space Brothers, show yourselves. And when nothing is happening for an hour and a half, it seems kind of corny.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, really would be lovely to see something tonight, and then I can go to bed because I had a big day the next day. So no sooner was I thinking, God, I'd really like to see something, and then it appeared, and I smiled. I just thought, wow, that's gorgeous. It was such a beautiful color, and I'm telling you, these things were pulsing. They looked like it was alive. The suction cups looked like an animal had attached itself to this V, because they were like this.
I suppose when you're looking at something like that out of this world, so you think it came out of a portal?
I think so, because there was a bang. I looked up to the left part of my peripheral vision. There was a wisp of smoke, like a wisp of smoke that wasn't there before, and that's where it came out of. In other words, it didn't come from the far part of the sky, and we saw it coming, because we were all looking in the sky, 200
Yeah.
people. We would have seen it. Someone would have said, "Look, there's something." It just appeared out of this puff and this bang, and it just did this little show. It was like someone flying a kite. It just was like, "Hey, how are you? Yeah, we thought you wanted to see us. Okay, gotta go, bye." And then it just vanished on the other end. So I know it came for us. It was beautiful. It made me feel happy. I didn't get any messages from it. But then I'm like, okay, well, nothing. I'm not going to top that. I guess I can go to sleep now, So, and when I was walking back to the hotel, people were like, "Did you see that? Wasn't that beautiful? Did you see that? Yeah, it was pulsing. Yeah, the octopus things on the."
It made everybody happy then, didn't it?
It did. Everyone saw it. Yeah, and we all had every single person there had their phone or camera. Everyone, and it happens from A to Z, Bob. It was so fast, nobody could shoot it. Now, I have a friend who was filming the whole thing for a documentary. I've been meaning to ask him if they got that on film because they were shooting the whole event. I bet you my friend Michael got that on film. So I would love to see that one again.
Oh, I'm going to say I would as well. Things like that. I'm going to say because sometimes when you get so enthralled in what you're looking at, you don't think about a phone or a camera to get out.
Well, it was 10 seconds, and it came out of nowhere, and you want to look at this gorgeous thing. You don't want to futz with your camera. If I had gotten my camera settings, by the time I looked up, it would have been gone.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to experience things in real life instead of getting it on your phone. But I'm going to ask my friend Michael Mazzola. He's a award-winning documentary filmmaker, and he was shooting the whole event. So I've been meaning to ask him if he got that. I need to ask him.
I won't be surprised if he's got it or he hasn't run it back yet to have a look.
I can text him. I'm going to text him this afternoon. I've been meaning to ask him for a month.
Tell us a bit about how you got involved in the UFO research.
Okay, that's a very good question. So it goes back to my 1970 sighting that I had with my father. So here's now part 2 of that story. As I said, 1970, 14, saw it with my dad. He was bored. I was thrilled. And then I forgot about that for 47 years completely, Bob. I just forgot that happened. In April 2017, 7 years ago, my dad passed away. And I was sad. He passed away in Florida with his second wife. I was sad, I went to a local delicatessen that 3 days later to get a pastrami sandwich and to think about my father. That's all I went there for, was to think about my dad, to be alone, and get a pastrami sandwich, because that was his favorite. So I'm sitting there, I ordered my sandwich, and as God is my witness, a beam of light came from above and shot into my head from above. Heaven, the universe, it's like bang, shot into my head hard, into the right part of my head, and then projected through my eyes and my brain in the air like this, 10 inches in front of my eyes. I saw the 1970 UFO event with my father. It played. It was a home movie. It played for me. It was 3D color hologram played in the air with sound.
Oh.
Could you imagine? This is 3 days after my father died, 47 years after the event. I'm watching it, Bob. I'm like, holy shit. I can't believe this. I forgot all about that. So I'm watching this, and in the video, now here's what's interesting. This video was not from my point of view. It was as though, my joke is, it was as though God was a cameraman, and God was in front of my father's car, because it was my dad's car, me and my dad in the front of the car, and the UFO above us. The camera for the home movie was positioned in front of my father's car, behind us, like 20 feet. So
Right.
the universe recorded this event. It wasn't a memory. My mother said it was a memory. I said, no, Mom, it wasn't, because it wasn't from my point of view. I saw myself. You know what I mean? So the camera was 20 feet, like Cecil B. DeMille. God was like Cecil B. DeMille with a camera like this.
Right.
So I watched it again. I'm jumping up and down. Dad, look, Dad, look. And my dad, here's the part that I didn't remember. He winked at me and said, come on, kid, let's go home. But my dad winked at me, Bob. Winked at me, right? Then this video stopped playing. Then I heard in my right ear, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen, get a pen. You need a pen, you need a pen. I asked the waiter for a pen, gave it to me. On the table in front of me was a paper placemat at the restaurant. I wrote down, my hand wrote, it was automatic writing. I didn't write these things.
Yeah.
But my hand wrote, write a book about benevolent aliens. Lead character's father knew about UFOs. And then I wrote capital A, capital T, capital C. And then my hand stopped moving. So I'm looking and looking and looking. I'm like, what the hell is happening here? What is this? And after a while, I came up with my UFO book after they came, ATC. This was given to me. It was given to me, I think it was from my father from heaven. So I wrote the book in 8 months after he passed. I wrote it right away. While I was researching while I was writing the book, I researched my father, Bob, because no one ever knew what my father did for a living.
Oh.
My father worked for the U.S. Army for 45 years. He was a civilian electronics engineer and a physicist. He worked for the Army from 1951 to 1996. And I researched my father's workplace, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Fort Monmouth was, their scientists invented over 4,000 military patents. Primarily things in the sky, things that flew in the sky and spied. Then I found a newsletter about my dad, a profile of my dad. I never knew I had it, from 1985. And it said my dad helped invent military drones. And he used to test them at White Sands Missile Testing Range. Then I called my mother. I go, Mom, did Dad ever talk about UFOs? And she said, in the early 50s, they took your father deep into the vaults at the Army base. They showed him something above top secret. She said he came home, he was pale and shaky and nervous. And my mother said, honey, what's wrong? And my father said to my mother, I saw something today I could never tell you about as long as I live.
Oh.
And my father never told anyone. My mother, not me or my two brothers. He never told anyone as long as he lived. Now here's the kicker of all these things. Two things. Again, as I'm researching my book, Richard Dolan His first book, Richard Dolan's book, is called UFOs in the National Security State, Volume 1. In the back of that book, there's a list of UFO sightings above military bases across the United States, starting from the 40s. So, Bob, my dad started working at Fort Monmouth in 1951. In the back of Richard Dolan's book, there's a UFO sighting in September 1951 above Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. And then there's another one a year later above Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, 1952. Well, my dad had just started working there then.
Oh, yeah.
He either saw those events or he must have heard about them, because my dad invented radar systems, missile systems, and drones. So if he didn't see those two events, he had to have heard about it. He was literally physically there. And now here's the kicker of all kickers. Last June, a year ago exactly now, Stephen Greer did a 3-hour press conference at the Washington Press Club. And part of his presentation, he showed a slide of the top 145 top U.S. military bases that he has proof of that worked on reverse engineering of UFO technology. I freeze framed it, Bob. 145 U.S. military bases. Number 51, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. It's where my father worked. I freeze framed it. I took a picture of it. I circled it. I sent it to my mother. I said, Mom, where Dad worked for 45 years, they worked on UFO retrievals and reverse engineering. And she goes, oh my God, I think you're right. My mother does not believe in aliens and UFO, but I think I finally wore her down. So I got all that research together. I wrote my book. My book is science fiction after they came, but it's a hopeful story. It's about two benevolent aliens who come to Earth to save mankind and solve all of mankind's problems. And when that book came out, it was last March. And because your question was, how did I get into ufology? I've been studying ufology personally, just on my own, since 2007. But my book came out a year ago. And within the last year, Bob, because I went to a bunch of UFO conventions to promote my book.
Yeah.
And that's when I became friends with Nick Pope, Richard Dolan, Steve Bassett, Ron Janix, the owner of Contact in the Desert, Ron James, who produced Accidental Truth, the movie. And then Steve Bassett and I created the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance a year ago. We have 200 members now all over the world. I'm the chairman and founder. Half of Hollywood Disclosure Alliance are UFO experiencers and researchers and disclosure advocates. And the other half are Hollywood writers, producers, and directors. So we're trying to influence the next era of motion pictures, TV shows, and documentaries through the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. It's like a matchmaking service. People with stories to tell and people in Hollywood who have the ability to get those stories on a screen.
You know, when we talk about Star Trek, was that, I know it was broadcast a lot of years. Do you think some of that technology, what we knew about, was put into them films?
Yes, I do think so. I think the U.S. military and the U.S. government here and there. The best example is Steven Spielberg and Close Encounters.
Yes.
Dr. J. Allen Hynek, as you know, was the science advisor for Project Blue Book, the U.S. Air Force, but he was the project advisor for Steven Spielberg, Close Encounters. Well, Steven Spielberg knows about aliens and UFOs, let's face it. He knows. He's been given inside information. When he showed the movie E.T. to President Reagan in the White House in 1982, President Reagan, at the end of the screening, said to everyone in the room, there's probably 3 or 4 people here in this room right now that know that aliens are real, like Stephen just showed us. And he goes, it's too bad the rest of the world doesn't know. And Spielberg said Reagan was serious. He wasn't making a joke.
Mm.
He was serious. So I think the military and certain people, the Spielbergs of the world, probably J.J. Abrams, probably M. Night Shyamalan or James Cameron or Martin Scorsese, some of the very, very big, very influential, famous filmmakers, I think they get tidbits of information. But to answer you, Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry probably had some of that inside information. I've heard stories that Rod Serling was given inside information about aliens. So some of these very influential Hollywood TV people and film people, some of them have gotten that. Yes, the answer would be yes.
What do you think their agenda is, the alien people then?
Well, apparently there are many, many different races of aliens. I'll give you an example. I have two female friends I'm very close with. They both were abducted by tall grays, and they were impregnated when they were in their 20s. And a few months later, they had their fetuses taken against their will. And they were very traumatized, and it was horrible. So those are the grays. I have another friend, very good friend of mine, very successful businessman in San Francisco. He just turned 60. He's been getting abducted by beautiful Pleiadians since the age of 5. And he just turned 60. So for 55 years, every so often, he meets with his Pleiadian friends on a huge ship, he says. He said they're beautiful. They're so beautiful. You look at them. He said the women are so beautiful you cry. They're so stunning. He calls them the light people. They told him to get involved with solar energy and bring it to the Native American Indians in the southwest of the United States. They told him this 10 years ago. Today, he's one of the top solar energy guys in the United States. He works with all the major Indian tribes in the southwest. He's bringing solar technology, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, wherever these tribes are living. And he's a multimillionaire. And he said, Dan, they told me to do this, and I did. It changed my life. So clearly, Bob, there are different races. Some are good, some are bad, some are probably neutral. And Nick Pope thinks that a lot of the extraterrestrials are demonic and evil. And he thinks that perhaps the reason the U.S. hasn't told us yet is because they're trying to spare us the bad news, because some of the races are not pleasant and they're not going to be good. And that might be why we don't know. Then my friend Steve Bassett, he goes, we need disclosure. It has to happen. And to him, the president goes on TV. He says, we have aliens. It's going to be unicorns and rainbows and everyone's going to dance in the streets. And Nick Pope goes, it's not going to be like that. It's not going to be great. There's going to be problems here. So there are different races, depending on your point of view. My book, After They Came, is Benevolent Aliens, based really, like my friend Mark, on the Pleiadian people. In fact, he read the book when I met him, and he said, Dan, how did you write my life story? He goes, how did you know how to do? He goes, your book is the most accurate thing I've ever read about Pleiadians. I go, really? I go, I don't know. It just came to me. So there are different races. Some are good, some are bad.
That's true. Do you think, when we talk about that, do you think we ever went to the moon?
I love that one. I really do. I love that one. I think, I've really thought about this hard. I think we did go to the moon, but I think the movies and the still photos that they showed us were pre-recorded. And the theory is Stanley Kubrick directed those. Did you know that? You heard that, right?
No, I didn't know that, but now you've told me.
Yeah. Stanley Kubrick was very much into the whole moon stuff. I think we went because tens of thousands of people around the world, NASA, in Florida people in Texas, and then tracking station people around the world. How could, if they just had orbited the Earth and were playing these movies, some of these tracking people on the Earth would have known Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were not on the moon. They were in space still. So I think we went, but I don't think what we were shown was from the moon. I think that had been pre-recorded. Because, if you study it, and you probably have, the light shadows are all wrong. There's an American flag waving in the breeze. There's no breeze on the moon. It's waving in the breeze. There's no breeze on the moon. They had these huge, huge gloves on, and photographic experts had said there's no way you could have run these Hasselblad cameras. You couldn't have clicked the clicking things with these huge oven mitt things on your hands. This always bothered me. There's footage of Apollo 11, the LEM, leaving the moon when they left, and it's lifting off, and so here's the LEM lifting off. There's a camera. I'm going to say the camera was probably 200 yards away, and they're lifting off. And now, how did the camera? There was no man down there. How did the camera tilt up and watch it? Because the camera tilts up. If you watch that, Bob, it looks like animation.
Yes.
Let's look at that carefully. There's no one on the ground to tilt that camera up. I don't think they had a remote control. I don't think Buzz Aldrin was remote controlling that camera. No. He probably had other things to do. And it looks like animation. I don't think that's real footage. So I guess my thing is, yes, I think they went, and I think that the photographic evidence is all screwed up.
Yes, I think they wanted to get there before the Russians, didn't they?
Well, it was all about Nixon. It was all about Nixon. Nixon wanted to beat the Russians. Plus, Nixon hated, as you know, he probably hated JFK. And, in fact, there's rumors that he was involved with the assassination. But JFK at Rice University, I think it was in 1962, said, let's go to the moon. And then Nixon, who competed with Kennedy his whole life, probably said, screw that guy. He thinks, I'm going to be the president to get us to the moon. I don't think we went to, well, yeah, I do think we went to the moon, but I don't think it was presented to us properly. No. But it was like a screw you to the Russians. It was like, screw you guys, we're so much ahead of you. Think about this, Bob. Why have the Russians to this day, they've never been to the moon? Chinese have never been to the moon. Americans have never been back since 1974.
That's right.
Well, why? Like, if you went there and created the protocol to get there and back safely, why would you not? Why would every country on the planet not have been there 1,000 times? So either we never went, or there's something wrong. There's also theories that there are extraterrestrials on the moon, and they don't want us there. And then there's ET bases on the dark side of the moon, and they don't want us there. Who knows? People know. I don't know, but people know.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. I've always said that. Why didn't they go back to the moon? Why didn't they?
If they first, it would be like Columbus discovers America, right? The land of all these riches. He goes back to Spain, tells Queen Isabella, whoever it was, King Ferdinand, hey, there's a whole new world. They went back and forth 1,000,000 times after that. You don't go once and stop.
Yeah,
no. And why would the Russians? The Russians never went to the moon. Why? There has to be a reason why. They certainly could.
Yeah.
If we could do it in 1969 with no computers, Russia can't do it today in 2024 with AI technology. Of course they could. So the question is, why are they not going there?
Either being told not to go.
Right. There's so much BS in the world that we don't know about, man. There's a lot has been covered up. A lot has been hidden from us. It really pisses me off, quite frankly.
Well, it does me. So tell us a little bit about your new book then, After They Came.
Okay, well, After They Came, I just discussed that one. Let's talk about my brand new one. It's called My Paranormal Life. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, Your Paranormal Life, yeah.
So that one just came out a few weeks ago. That one I wrote last year. I've had ghosts, poltergeists, angelic voices telling me things, always in my right ear, incredible coincidences, When I was in college, apparently I was a doppelganger for some other guy. When I was 5 years old, I fell off a billboard sign, and I think a gargoyle saved my life.
Ah,
I've had paranormal things happening to me since the age of 5. So last year I was bored, and I said, I'm just going to write down my UFOs. After my dad passed, he visited me as a ghost a number of times. My dead grandfather was a poltergeist in my house 20 years ago. He was breaking things. And my family, we did a Ouija board thing, and he told us it was him. He told us who he was. It was my grandfather. So I just had all these stray stories. And I was bored. And so about 6 months, I just wrote them all down, pitched it to my publisher. He goes, Dan, I love it. Let's do it. And I love the cover. The cover is my favorite part because I had a graphic artist.
oh yeah, I can see that. My paranormal life.
So these are my UFOs here.
Yeah, I can see
I've
that. Yeah.
I've had angelic voices speak to me since I'm 10 years old. This is my father. This is my father's ghost. Here, that's me, right? And then when I was 5 and I fell off a sign. God, I can't do this. A gargoyle. I saw
Oh yeah,
a
I see
gargoyle
that.
saved my life. I know. I woke up in a strange house after I fell off the sign, and this big creature was standing there, Bob, looking at me like he just saved my life. And my mother thinks it's a dream. I said, "No, Mom, there was a creature there. He saved me. I guess. I think I died. He brought me back." So
With
that
all these paranormal things, have you ever been attacked by anything?
No, no, but here's the most interactive one ever. I mentioned my grandfather was a poltergeist. I lived in a house in Beverly Hills 20 years ago with a girlfriend, and we had a beautiful fireplace in this house. And one night, I had bought a canister of long fireplace matches. Those canisters, like round canisters with fireplace matches. They're really
Yeah.
long. So, Bob, I opened up a corner of the canister and I grabbed these 50 matches. Now, a normal person would have taken one and pulled
Yeah,
it
of
out,
course you would.
right? A normal person, one, maybe two, right? I grabbed them, all 50 with my hand, and I yanked it out of this canister so fast that all 50 went up in
Oh
flame.
my
It
God.
was a torch, literally a torch in my hand. I'm holding a torch a few inches from my eyebrows and my mustache, right?
Oh
And
gosh.
I'm looking and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? I was frozen. Honest to God, I was frozen. I'm like, what just happened? Left side of my peripheral vision from the dining room through the living room, a bluish white mist, very prominent bluish white mist. It looked like Casper the Friendly Ghost without a face. From the dining room, flew through the living room, grabbed this torch out of my hand, Bob, grabbed it out of my hand, and threw it into the fireplace. And I'm like, what the hell just
Well,
happened? And that was my grandfather. That was my dead grandfather. He was protecting me.
yeah.
Because when we did the Ouija board, he told us who he was, and it was him. He knew things that no one else would have known. So that was it. That was interactive, right? I mean, something took this thing out of my hand.
Uh,
So in my experience, this thing saved my eyebrows and my hair and my face because I had a torch in my face. So mine wasn't bad at all. Now, of course, people have. I have a friend who gets scratched, a woman friend in Arizona. She wakes up and gets scratched all over her body, and she sends me these pictures. I go, "What did you do to yourself?" And then she shows me her fingernails, and there's no fingernails. She has like stubs. She
oh
goes, Dan,
God.
something keeps scratching me at night. It's just claw marks all over her body. So fortunately, I was very lucky, and my friend Christine is not, apparently.
Dan, I don't know, are we chosen sometimes to interact with paranormal or UFOs or aliens? Why some people chosen and it don't happen to other people?
That's a really wonderful question. When I was writing my paranormal life, I was thinking, why? It's the first time Bob had ever occurred to me, because I had never put down all my stories. I had had them in floating in my head.
Yeah.
I just turned 68 last week. So I wrote this book. I was 67. But I'm like, okay, I've seen UFOs. My father visited me as a ghost. My grandfather was a poltergeist in my house. I've had angelic voices. I had an angelic voice, Bob, tell me to start my own business. I had just turned 40. I'm at a meeting with my boss, who I hated this guy, and we're at a hotel, in the restaurant, a beautiful hotel, and I'm with a meeting with my boss, who I hated. I just turned 40. True story. And the chandelier above my head, Bob, said like this, Dan, start your own business. I looked up. I said, what? And then, Dan, now my boss is sitting next to me, right?
Yeah.
Start your own business. I had just turned 40 that week. I'm like, okay. I look at my boss. I'm in a meeting with my boss. I stand up. I go, I have to go now. He goes, where are you going? I go, I have to go. It's the greatest moment of my life, Bob, other than when my children were
It
born.
was.
It's the greatest moment of my life, other than when my children were born. I go, I got to go. I hated this prick. So I got up. I went home. I called all my clients. They all said, yeah, if you start your business, you have my business. I went from $80,000 a year to $600,000 a year, like that.
Just like that.
Because the chandelier said to me, Dan, start your own business. It was
Now,
like God speaking unto Moses on Mount Sinai. Moses told the Pharaoh to let my people go, right?
yeah.
It was that. It is that. Why these things happen to me, I don't have the slightest idea. But I would say all of my things have been, for me personally, have been positive. My UFO things are positive. When my dad was a ghost visiting me, I loved my dad. I got to see him, not see him, but he was in my room turning lights on and off and doing things in my room, talking to me. I loved my grandfather. The gargoyle, apparently, when I fell off a 30-foot sign when I was 5. The gargoyle saved my life. This creature saved my life. I wouldn't be here. My children wouldn't be here without that creature. So my things have been positive for me personally. The chandelier told me start a business. I became wealthy, changed my life. I've been paranormally, I've been very blessed. I'm going to have to say I've been very, very blessed.
Does it run in your family then? Going back in
No,
ages?
no one that I know of, not one person. My mother thinks I'm batshit crazy. She does. She thinks I'm nuts. Let me read you the first page of my book here. Hold on one second.
Yeah, okay.
All right, My Paranormal Life. It just came out. It's on Amazon. My Paranormal Life. And you'll love this. So this is the dedication page. For my mother Joan, who believes not one of the stories in this book. And she called me, she goes, Dan, that's the hardest I ever laughed in my life. Isn't that great? She thinks I'm crazy. She doesn't believe in any of those things.
Yeah, but that's brilliant, isn't it? In its own little way.
I thought it was funny. And then I have a brand new book that came out on my birthday, which was last Monday. And this is my newest book and probably my last book. This is called 5. It's my 5th book. It's about a serial killer from 1870s Europe named Fievel. So his nickname was Five. Also, it's my 5th book.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So a serial killer, 1870s Europe named Fievel. He's a famous Hungarian actor in Europe. He becomes a serial murderer because he was traumatized as a child, and you have to read that part. So he murders people. Even though he's famous and rich and good looking, he murders people, primarily women. Then he gets killed. 100 years later, a young kid in Boston, Massachusetts named Billy Simon, he's a guitar prodigy and a good looking kid, singer, songwriter, guitarist. He's gifted with music. He becomes the biggest pop music star in the world. But when he was a kid, unbeknownst to him, he inherited that the first guy's. He's the reincarnation of the first guy.
Oh,
So
right.
the biggest. So think about this: the biggest pop music star in the world is a serial killer at night. Now, isn't that the weirdest? I walk 5 miles every other
Yeah.
day. That's another 5 thing. And one day I was thinking, what if Bruce Springsteen was a mass murderer. Like, he's hundreds of thousands of people. Everyone loves Bruce, right? And then after the show, he gets in his car, he puts on dark clothes, and he kills women in dark alleys. I'm like, what if the biggest star in the world was a murderer? So that's where Five came from. It's off the wall, but it just came out last week. It's on Amazon. All my books are on Amazon, and that's where I'm proud of that one. It's a cute little book. It's evil and dark and twisted, but I like it. I think it's fun.
Yeah, but it's something different. You probably a lot of people won't get things like that. Are you quite good at writing then?
I am. I am. I've always been, Bob. I mean, I remember from eighth grade, um, helping my friends with their English homework, writing short stories. My eighth grade teacher said, "Dan, you probably have written the best short stories I've ever read from any student I've ever had." I was always a writer. And in fact, when I came to LA when I was 24, 1980, I thought I wanted to be a writer for TV. I wanted to be a comedy writer for TV. And I tried, Bob, for years and years.
Yeah.
I never got a break. I came close 3 times, but I just never got a break. So along the way, I got married, I had kids, and I became a publicist. And I've made a good living from being a publicist. A lot of being a publicist is writing. Because I've had probably 1,000 clients by now. You get a client, whether it's a film or a TV show or an actor or a rock band or an author or a production company or a film festival, whatever it is. My first job is to write up who they are, what they do, and why
Exactly.
right. You read who are they? What do they do? What's newsworthy about them? Why are they different, better, or special than anybody else? Well, that's writing. So 3/4 of my profession as a publicist, or any publicist that's good, you have to be a really good writer. That's a big chunk of being a good publicist. Then you have to be good with photography, with photos. Um, you have to pose you pose your clients. You help them create their logos. You get them at an event cutting a red ribbon with a big scissors. I've done everything there is to do. I've done stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I've done all this stuff. So you have to be good visually. So you have to be a good writer. You have to be good visually, because all of my clients have good photographic PR materials to go with the
Yeah.
written word. And then I think the most important thing is you have to be two more things. You have to be super creative, and you have to be outgoing. Because why? I've gotten clients into the New York Times and CNN and People Magazine. These are hard things to do. This is not easy to do. You have to be very outgoing. You have to have creativity. You have to find the right editor or journalist at the New York Times who's going to care that your client just won his 5th Academy Award, whatever it is. So there's a lot going into being a publicist. But to answer you, I pride myself on my writing. And then during COVID, when my PR business got slow, I wrote I wrote 5 books in a row. Flirting with Fame,
Brilliant.
my Hollywood book, Flirting with Fame. Carrots is
Oh, yeah.
my sex addiction book. After They Came is my UFO book. My Paranormal Life is my ghost book. And then 5 is my reincarnated serial killer book. I'm done, man. I wrote 5 books in 2 years. I think that's pretty good. I really don't think Stephen King's pulled that off even.
I don't think so. Where do you see your future lies then? Now, are you going to go in another direction?
That's a great question. People have asked me that recently. I have 2 goals left in my life. One is to walk my daughter down the aisle at her wedding to a non-asshole person, because all her boyfriends have been assholes so far. So I'm waiting for my daughter to meet a nice guy and walk her down the aisle. That will be the best day of my entire life. And the other thing is, I have a screenwriter in New York City who's writing the screenplay for my UFO book, After They Came. And he and I are collaborating on the screenplay. I have 10 Hollywood producers, Bob, that I'm friends with, who I want to hand them and say, look, this is a movie. This book I got the most incredible reviews from the top UFO people in the world. In the world,
By
they
golly.
they loved my book. George Norrie, I've been on twice. He goes, Danny, he goes, you know that book needs to be a movie. I go, yeah, George, tell me about it. Like, yeah, like I don't know that. So, two goals in life. That's it, and maybe retire to Hawaii. But walk my daughter down the aisle. After they came, I need that to be a movie. Now, my mother turns 90 in October. God bless my mother.
Ah,
I talk to her once a
you.
week, and my mother says, "Danny, before I die, I want to see after they came on a movie screen." And I said, "Mom, I'm working on it. I'm working on it." So
Oh,
there you go.
she still wants the best for you.
She told me I was a writer before I knew I was. Honestly, she when I was a little kid, sixth grade, I think. She goes, "You know, you're a writer." Oh, really, Mom? Can I have some ice cream now? Okay, like what do you know? But yeah, my mother knew. My mother knew I was a writer decades before I did. So I'm a late bloomer. I just turned 68. In the last 2 years, I've written 5 books. I'm tired. Kind of kind of want a break for a while.
Tell us about before we go. Tell us about your podcast you're doing.
Sure. Every Thursday night, I have a show called Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. It's on the UNX, UNX. So it's the UNX, UNX Digital Broadcasting Network. It's out of St. Louis, Missouri. And I've had, it's a live 1 hour show every Thursday night. The UNX network also has a show with Whitley Strieber, right? So Whitley Strieber, his podcast, I think it's called Night Dreams. His podcast is there. Peter Robbins has a podcast there.
I know Peter, yeah.
Clyde Lewis has a radio show, not a podcast, radio show there. So I'm in very good company. I joined in January. I've done 6 months of shows. Tomorrow night will be my 24th show. I've interviewed Richard Dolan, Nick Pope, Steve Bassett, Ron James, Paul Hynek, those kind of people. And then I've also
Really?
interviewed movie stars. Dee Wallace, the star of E.T., Thomas Jane, he's a movie star, he's a friend of mine. Dania Ramirez is a movie star, she's a friend of mine. And Bob, I'll leave you with this. Do you know who remember Freddy Krueger from
I do,
Nightmare?
yeah, yeah.
So the actor Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. I've known him for 30 years. I've been trying to reach him for 3 months. He called me the other day and he goes, Dan, it's Robert Englund. Of course I'll do your podcast for you. So I'm going to interview. And it's going to be my Halloween show. So I'm going to get Freddy Krueger for my Halloween. That's pretty cool, man.
Oh,
So
that is
so
brilliant.
we'll leave it with this. DanHarariAuthor.com. You can read about me and buy my books. DanHarariAuthor.com. All my books are on Amazon. If you're interested in the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, check that out. HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. And then my podcast is called Live from Hollywood. It's Paranormal Tonight. And I appreciate that you had me back on. Thanks, man.
And what night's that on?
Every Thursday. Every Thursday
Every
night.
Thursday evening.
Right, exactly.
Brilliant.
10 to 11 Pacific, 1 to 2 Eastern. I'm going to try to get it earlier. Like my mother wants to hear it. My mother can't stay up that late, so I'm trying
So that's
to...
about 5 or 6 o'clock UK time in the morning, AM time.
10 p.m. Pacific, you're what, 8 hours ahead, right?
5 hours
You're 5 hours.
Eastern time.
Okay. Oh, from Eastern time?
Yeah, 5 hours ahead
So that would be 6 a.m. UK
in the
time.
morning.
That's
Yeah. Some people get up at that time, so they
Okay.
could tune in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, I'm about to get another interview, so I need
Yeah,
to go.
I know you got. Yeah, exactly.
I'm very popular because I'm so rich and famous. But anyway, Bob, thank you, man. This is so much fun. I really appreciate you. Thank
love
you.
it, love it.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.